This video is going to show you how to create a revolved object. Now, the way I want you to think about a revolve is think about the word revolve. What does revolve mean? You're probably coming up with the idea of something spinning. If we think about the word revolve, it comes from the word revolution, right? So if we think about the Earth spins on its axis. And in that same way of the Earth spinning on its axis, we're going to spin objects by spinning a profile around an axis. In this case, our axis goes right down the middle of this object. And for any of these revolves, any revolved object, there is a profile spinning around an axis. And if we just look down the list here, that's all we see is profiles and axes. So let's do number one together here. All right, I've got 4 dimensions. I need to guesstimate one more, but overall it's a very simple process. I'm going to start with a sketch. I'm going to put my axis. I usually like to start at my axis. I always find it very helpful to start the axis on the origin point and have it either vertical or perpendicular to the origin point when possible. Sometimes that's not the easiest if the axis is itself at an angle, but most of the time I like to start there. Then I'm going to use my line tool and I'm going to start sketching the profile. And the way I like to think about a profile is if I turn this right side up and I cut into it like a piece of pie, the profile of that, the side view of that piece of pie is what I'm sketching. And essentially it's going to look something like this. I kind of have this long disc part, then I have this shorter cylinder part with a hole in the middle. And if I'm careful, I can do this all in one shot and not need to do a second cut. Okay, right. I'm going to do this 3.75 first, and what I see is that is the distance between the axis and the edge of this center hole. 0.375. Next, I'm going to do this 0.75, which again starts at the axis and goes to the outside of this cylinder here. Then I'm going to put in this 1 inch. This 1 inch looks like it goes across this front face to this part of the disc here. And then this 0.5 looks like it's referencing the thickness of this disc. Now, oops, I'll put an extra 4 in there. Now, the one thing that it's missing is this distance here between this first cylinder and the edge of the second cylinder. I'm going to base my guess for this on the next easiest dimension for me to see, which is the distance of this 0.75, which is from the axis to the outside cylinder. The distance here and the distance here looks like this one is just a little bit bigger, so I'm going to call that an inch. And I think that's going to be pretty darn close. In some of these problems, there is, in a few, there's a missing dimension. So we just have to guesstimate. And actually, that's a really good skill to develop because sometimes we're not given all the answers and we have to kind of make it fit, make it work. I'm going to put a vertical here because I'm going to lock the ends of this axis line in at this edge of my profile and this edge. So I'm going to put in some vertical constraints there. And now that by doing that, it fully constrained my sketch, which I can see under the sketch tab here. I can see that little padlock. That means it's completely constrained, which is always what we want to shoot for. So now to get the 3D Revolve feature, I go to my solid tab up here. The extrude is what we've been using in the past, but we're going to use Revolve this time, right? And if you hover over, it gives you this explanation of what it does, right? Essentially the textbook explanation. And we're going to select that. A lot of times that will pick up the profile. It'll find it. It'll look for the enclosed areas of your sketch, and it usually picks that right up. And then the second thing you have to put in is your axis, which is the line you're spinning around. And there we go. Make sure it's 360 degrees, and that's how you do a revolve.